We're going to talk about Black women navigating the workplace, but in particular, Black women in the glass cliff.
I can think about many opportunities I've had in my life, and I feel like they put me in it because it was already a sinking ship.
Welcome to The Road to Soul Joy Wellness, where a coach and a therapist explore the journey to living your best life on purpose. Here are Joy Williams and Nadine Huesner, your hosts.
Hey, Nadine, I'm ready for another great conversation.
Hey, Joy, new day, new start. Our conversations are always so interesting. I enjoy our conversations. I think they are so relevant to everyday experiences. I'm sure the listeners feel the same way too. So I'm excited about our topic of the day.
Well, great. So we're going to talk about Black women navigating the workplace, but in particular, Black women in the glass cliff. So I don't know how familiar you are with this term, but it is a reference used talking about when a woman or a member of a minority group gets to a leadership position in challenging times. But really the point is that there's a high risk of failure. They're put in a position, seems great, but there's a high risk of failure.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I can think about many opportunities I've had in my life, and I feel like they put me in it because it was already a sinking ship. But yeah, I think that is a reality for um, many women of color that we are, and that there's this drive to be successful and to make a mark on this in this world, and we step up to the plate for great challenges, right? We're like, okay, I can do it, and we persist and we work hard, but sometimes it works out really great, and sometimes it doesn't, and that's where we get kind of confused. Like, is it me? Was I not ready? Was it the environment? What was it that made me not achieve or be successful in this role?
I have a word for the day. It is Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So we always need to be renewing our mind.
I
That's my word
love
for the day.
it. Oh, that's wonderful, Joy. Well, my word of the day, right? And I think it sort of falls in step with your renewing of the mind is persistence, right? Persistence is a noun, and it's a firm or obstinate continuance in a course of action in spite of difficulty or opposition.
That's
That's
a
my
great
word of the day. Hmm. I think it's
word. I
a
like that word.
it works with your scriptures.
Yes. Perfect.
Bingo.
So yeah, when we look at Black women, we have the most advanced degrees. So we're an educated group. We have, and those of us who leave corporate, we are starting the most companies. So we are very ambitious as a group of people. We raise our hand to do things, and oftentimes we don't have the support around us. So I think
Mhm.
those are some of the challenges that we don't have. We don't have the support, and we're put in these new situations and have really
Mhm.
large uh, expectations, but
Mhm.
not the resources to complete them.
Well, I guess I got to ask the question, what do you mean by we don't have the support? I mean, is it that we don't really know where to go for the supports? And I don't know. I That's kind of the question, because with so many things in life, it's not that the resources are not there. We may not know how to access them, right? Or how to be aligned with those resources.
Yeah, I think in some ways that's true. In some ways, it it cannot be. So you can go out and get a mentor. You can get someone. You can
Mhm.
talk to people and get mentors, but you can't go out and get a sponsor. Someone has to agree to do that. Someone has to decide that they're putting their professional capital behind you. So that person is talking positively about you when you're not in the room. So you can't even guarantee if someone is something that you can't ask for. So, and then there are people that clear the way for people that get into senior level positions. I remember
Mhm.
talking to someone who's now retired, I don't remember his name, when I was at JP Morgan Chase, talking about his transition to a senior role because some other people put obstacles in his way. And then his mentor, his boss, his sponsor, I don't think it was his boss, but his sponsor cleared the way for him. So I don't think that's necessarily happening for us as much, or that we feel that way. So I think this mix of things, there are definitely things that we should be doing to have the support that we need. And then there are times where we don't have the support that other people would get, which is why sometimes we end up in these situations after a crisis, because people are like, okay, we're going to give it to this person after this crisis.
So interesting. I never heard the difference. You said something about the difference between a mentor and a sponsor, and that is that's a new categorizing that I never really thought of, right? That you'll always have people who support you in what you do and want to share their wisdom or whatever with you, but a sponsor, like that's pretty different. To have someone who is your sponsor really indicates another level of commitment to your success, right? That they have skin in the game almost. It feels like they would have skin in the game to be your
They do.
sponsor.
Yeah, they do, because they're using their reputation to say, I support this person, right? So you can develop relationships with people and hope they will do that, but you won't necessarily know, right? You might know after the fact that they are or they aren't. Yeah, but you might not know. So it's the person. So if you think of the senior level executives, they're sitting around in a room. It's that person who's going to talk about you and going to bring you up and advocate for you. And they're going to use their political capital to say, yeah, I want this to happen. I want this person.
Yeah, and I'm trying to look back in my life, like who were those senior level people that I knew when they sat at the table were truly my sponsor. I feel, would perform that task, right? That speak me up in those circles, those realms. But I wonder, like, for many of our listeners, like, can they identify someone in their lives who was that sponsor? I know I have done that with people where I have definitely spoken them up in situations that would benefit them professionally and in their career. But my brain is just like, wow, sponsor. And people use, I want a mentor, always try to tap into getting mentors, having that mentorship. But really, if you're going to break that glass or not go over that glass cliff, you need a sponsor. You need someone who's going to you not only put their name behind you, but are going to push the issue or push you into those key opportunities.
And also they can stop when people are against you. They can stop some of that, not just chatter, but what people do. And depending on the level, because this person that I was talking to when I was at JP Morgan Chase, he was a SVP or an EVP, and he basically talked about how, people can get people moved because you're an impediment to that person, right? So when they see the people being detractors or because it doesn't matter if it's racism or they just don't like you, right? It's the impact is the same. We can label it nicely because we're trying to sue somebody, but the impact is the same. So if they can stop those things, if they're trying to be blockers, they can open up those doors. And if you're not having enough resources, if someone wants you to do a job and you don't have enough staff or you don't have enough funds, they can say, well, we're making sure that this happens and we're making sure we're allocating that. And if you're having a challenge because of no fault of your own, because someone else is doing a CYA and they're trying to, say something bad about you, then you could end up in a better place. So you could end up in a better situation. So in order to get there, because you can't ask someone to do that because that's what they're doing and they're doing it when you're not there, you have to develop relationships, mentor relationships, and develop relationships with people. So I think those are some of the things that we need to do to get that relationship. But often I think the challenge I in this Forbes article on this topic, Black women are ambitious and feel less supported. I think it feeling less supported is something that's pervasive. It's like 59% of Black women feel that way compared to other people. So that is, it's a disturbing thing.
Yeah. Because they may feel less supported because they may not truly have in their career pursuits or in that work environment sponsors.
Yeah.
Because if you had a sponsor, you would know someone, and a sponsor, the thing about a sponsor is they also have to have power, right? Someone who doesn't have power or resource or access to resources cannot be a sponsor.
Right.
They're they're a cheerleader at that point. Right. So when they feel less supported, really what I'm hearing is they may not have sponsors in their field. I mean, I can say, myself professionally and everything, I do have those people who support and encourage and people who will, guide me, mentor me in different things. But I can probably count on one hand sponsors that I've had. And I've never been really good at those kind of relationships, aligning myself with people who make good decisions. Not make good decisions, people of power,
Well, and people who are really willing to risk their power, right? So I think that's the thing. It's like some people have power, but they're only willing to risk it for a small thing, and not really to put their necks out that to expose themselves. And sometimes even I mean, I think sponsors are a really important part, but sometimes the environment and the implicit biases that people have are overwhelming, right? So I think black women more than other leaders feel that they're being mistaken for people at lower levels, and then to have your judgment questioned. But then the other thing that happens a lot is people don't hear your ideas. Right? They don't hear your ideas. If the same person's, if someone else, a man says it in a room, or a white woman, as we're talking about, then they hear it. So
that is so frustrating to be in that situation. And the very same thing you said, everyone has stepped over it, and then they circle back 5 minutes later, and then it's restated, and everybody is like, and then the people in the room are like, oh, brilliant idea. Like,
yeah. So So for those kind of things, there are. I remember one of my managers at ESPN was talking about it. And it wasn't just a Black woman thing; it was a woman thing. So they would have another woman echo what they said, right? So echo what they said, and then if someone else, which means you're developing these relationships, right? So and then if someone else said something about an idea that someone already said, that another person would say, well, that was the great idea that this person gave.
Yes.
She already said.
Yeah.
Or you have to do that for yourself, and they say, well, thank you for restating my idea. So the people recognize it happens. It is like not being heard. There's so many spaces where we're not, like, we're literally saying the words and not being heard. And I remember going to talk to someone and gave an idea, and the person gave me these reasons why it couldn't happen. And then my subordinate went to talk to him, and he was like, okay. I was like, oh, what? Like, this is like, now it's a real idea. I said it already, and you dismissed it out of hand. Didn't even think about it, right? And then, because that shows you, one, that person's bias already. Because sometimes, I mean, we talk about unconscious bias, but sometimes people are really, it's not necessarily unconscious, but sometimes it is. But then, so you have to say, okay, this is what's happening. What am I going to do? So when I look back at my career and thinking of the things that I could have done better, because that's, I could have had developed more mentors, and more, not just mentors up, but more even on the same level kind of thing.
Yeah.
Make you feel more supported.
So and I'm always going to play the devil's advocate on the other side, right? And if you keep getting the same response or the same, then I think there needs to be a space for you to do some self-reflection. Like, what is it that I'm doing? And I'm not saying that's in all cases. I mean, we're not talking in absolutes, but I think there comes a point where there needs to be some self-reflection. Like, is there some way I can do this differently? Is it how I come off? Because I know sometimes I've been in meetings where you always have that one person who's always angry, right? They say things and then you're already shut them out because you're like, oh my God, what are they saying? And I have been in places where people have said, well, that person had said that. And I'm like, oh, really? Because they were just really angry. So I really wasn't listening. But there has to be a part two and all of that. I do understand that there are certain systems and dynamics that exist, but that we have to do some self-reflection. And it's like, am I coming into these meetings or these this think tank with an energy that has people shut off to me? And then there's that whole thing, where the stereotypical angry Black woman, where because we're passionate about what we are talking about, or because we have been groomed to be confident and assertive in how we present things, it's now interpreted as you being just aggressive, which
Yeah.
is so unfair.
Yeah. And I think in those situations, because I want a more equitable future, right? And I want those in all these places. At the same time, in this particular situation, how are you going to navigate it? Because one of the ways of navigating is to leave it all together, right? So, and that's what more of us are doing. That's why Black women are the highest number of growing number of entrepreneurs, or the entrepreneur growth is in Black women the greatest. But in those situations, you have to figure out what's going on. So I remember I was in one situation where there was an issue that I would bring up on a regular basis because it remained an issue. And talking to some of my colleagues, they were like, you can't talk about it anymore because they're going to stop listening to you. They're just not going to listen to you. And I said, well, this is what the point of this is. And they're like, yeah, we get it, but we'll have to talk about it because you can't do it. So if you have to recognize that people are going to, not just the angry Black woman, the complaining person, the whatever, like, she's talking about that again. And like you said, the person that they're angry, they're this, they're that, they're annoying, they're whatever. So people stop listening, even though they make valid points. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So to share that and to how you navigate that. Still, again, we're going back to this, you building relationships. So mentors, sponsors, colleagues. So people have to say, well, this is what they're going to be hearing if you bring it up again. Even if you bring it up nicely, they're not going to hear you.
You've already been labeled as that person.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is why a lot of times Black people in situations when DE&I is not their role, they don't want to be that person. They don't want to take on that banner because you become the person always doing that. So if you're championing something, you need to be strategic on how to do that, so that you make sure when it is, a stated goal, but not a company goal, like people say it's important to them, but it's not really important. Like, how are you going to advance that? So,
and sometimes the decisions or I don't know, sometimes the work doesn't always happen at the table, right? That there are seeds that you may have to plant, right? And identifying and developing those allies, right? Because you don't always want the message only to come from you, but if you identify colleagues or coworkers or people who you can plant the seed, and when you're still not there, we'll restate it. By the time you come to the table, it already had the opportunity to marinate, right? That concept, that idea, what you're trying to push forward. So, a lot of times people feel, oh, I have this idea, they'll hold on to it. Not a lot of times. Sometimes people may feel, oh, I have this idea, I'm going to protect it because I don't want anyone else to, share this idea, which is mine. but what you ultimately do is sabotage yourself because now it's a new idea that people haven't had an opportunity to process.
Yeah, so that's a really good one because you really have to figure out how you're going to share your idea, especially there are plenty of people who have had their ideas stolen, co-opted,
Mm-hmm.
and people take full credit for that and don't give them compensation and all that. So how are you going to protect your idea and share it at the same time, especially when you're working within a company? So at the end of the day, if you're in a company and you're doing something in a work product, it is the company's, it's not yours, but how is someone else over there getting credit for it? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then I guess some of that is, emails of information can help. But yeah, that makes it even more complex. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
complex.
It's a strategy.
Yeah.
It's a strategy. Even you think about our current political environment, where most of the negotiations, most of the decisions don't happen when they're taking the votes on the floor. They've already happened behind closed doors. People have already been um, identified or aligned to what their position is. So the table is just a way to formalize a concept, an idea, a decision. But a lot of the work, right? So as we try to strategies to try to avoid the glass cliff, it's that these ideas, these things don't happen in the space you think they happen. They start. It's already in motion. And when you come to the table and the decision is made, and you might have heard it for the first time, that just means you were not at the table when the conversation was first had. So getting a better understanding of the dynamics that are going on, you now must use those same strategies. Okay, I want to have this happen. I'm going to have to start this, slowly but surely having conversations. What do you think about? What do you think
Mhm.
about this? Right? Not necessarily disclosing your idea, but engaging people in the conversation that maybe a change needs to happen and what the possibility of what that looks like as a way, but you're still not fully disclosing your full plan, but just begin to plant the seeds, introduce the idea, the concept.
Yeah, that's really good because it brought to mind like a lot of people say they just going to work to do their job, keeping their head down. But you can't do that. You have to be really
Cannot.
engaged and build those relationships. And then even in that, so take note, like if people, as Maya Angelou says, if they show you who they are, believe them, right? The
Believe
first
them.
time, believe them. So,
Mm-hmm.
we get microaggressions from people, like take note, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm getting this from this person. I'm not going to continue to give them a pass. And how, it might appear to them that they're getting a pass, but that that's a person you can't particularly trust, or a person that has some level of insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
And then to
Mm-hmm.
figure out, sometimes relationships can get better and um, people get to know one another. And then,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but you definitely have to be really engaged in what it is. And then sometimes you have to say, okay, I'm out of here. This is
Mm-hmm.
not going to work.
Yeah. Knowing when the dance is over, when the party is over, the lights are coming on. Okay, it's time for me to go. Right? It's been real. It's been good. Those things are really that's important. You got to know what is that? Kenny Rogers, the country singer. You got to know when to hold them and when to fold them, right? And that's also part of the strategy approach. You got to know when the dance is done. Like you gotta like this is not going anywhere, and be able to call it. Going back to something you said about just not giving people a pass, but I'm really of the school of thought, and this is not giving people a pass. It's about, you keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer, right? Um, I may not necessarily like this person, but if they may be the means to an end, it might be something, I might want to set healthy boundaries, right? Here's what you're not going to do, but I'm not necessarily going to separate and isolate myself from them.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that sometimes we have this trouble doing. So, some of us, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking of Black women in particular, that
Mm-hmm.
it's either all in or all out. And even in the
Mm-hmm.
cancel culture, right? We're just,
Mm-hmm.
we want to cancel somebody because they did something we don't like, we're going to ignore them. But we have to figure out how we're going to navigate. We're going to know
middle road.
Yeah, we don't trust them for whatever, but we're going to connect with them when we need to.
Mhm.
Yeah. So getting away from this glass cliff
Yeah.
and surviving.
I know, Joy, I feel equipped to go out there and face the world. Always talking to you helps me to open up my mind and really look at things from a different perspective. But I learned something new about that glass cliff and sponsor. I did not know about a sponsor.
Yes.
So I'm going out there looking for sponsors. Are there
Mhm.
any sponsors out there?
Yes, it's always great talking to you too. I love it. So yeah, so now we're all hopefully more equipped to think about and be strategic, and like you said, be reflective in our part of this journey so that we can get to the outcome that we really want.
Beautiful.
Thanks, everybody. Until next time.
Until next time. Thanks, Joy. Take care. Bye-bye.
Join us next time as we continue to focus on living our best life on purpose.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Road to Soul Joy Wellness. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We love your feedback and a chance to answer your questions, and we may even share your ideas on the show. Until the next time, enjoy your time on the road to Soul Joy Wellness.